let's actually try a program which uses these arithmetic operators to produce answers. Okay, so what I've done is I have in my project here, I have an MU panel in which I'm going to be declaring several integer and double variables and then working with them. Okay, so let's take a look here at the code, and you'll notice inside the MU panel constructor method, I've changed the dimensions of the graphics window to 400 by 200. Here's the title. And now I'm declaring several integer variables, or you can think of them as properties, but they're being declared inside the constructor method. So it matters where you declare things. If I declare something outside of the methods, those objects are what are called at the class level, and they are accessible throughout the entire any method in the class definition. But if you declare something inside a method, it only exists within the curly braces that mark the body of the method. And similarly, or I should say additionally, if you declare something inside a method, you don't use the keyword private. Okay, so we just say integer x, y, z, and id, double d, dd, and answer. So those are the variables that we had from the examples in the lecture slides. And now let's see what happens. So if I store 47 in x and 5 in y, and then I calculate z to be x plus y. Now the meaning of plus when the data values are numeric is addition. So this is going to be the contents of x plus the contents of y, add it together, store that in z. So z 52 will be stored in z. Okay. Now, next I have a system out println. And system out println, remember the purpose of that is to print a line in the Java console, or what NetBeans calls the output window, which is part of the NetBeans display. And then it'll move the what you can think of it as the cursor to the beginning of the next line. So the next thing to be printed will be on the next line. Okay. If I said system out print, it would print whatever it's going to print and then stay on the same line. But ln, the ln means print whatever you have here and then move to the beginning of the next line. Now notice what's in between the parentheses here has plus signs. Okay. But what does it mean to have plus signs with numeric data and then plus a string, like this quote plus or quote equal sign? Okay. Well, it turns out that the plus symbol, when string data are involved, or is involved, would be, the meaning is different. It doesn't mean addition. It means what's called concatenation, string concatenation, taking two strings and joining them back to back with no spaces in between. Okay, and if you mix numeric and string data with a plus operator, then the string or the numeric data is converted to a string, and so we're going to be joining things together. So this is the way that we can build a message that's going to be printed from numeric data and also then put strings around it so that it's a little bit easier to read. So first would be the contents of the variable x, then would be space plus space, then the contents of the variable y, and then space equals space, and then the contents of variable z. And all of that would be on one line. Okay. After that, we're now going to change the value in z by saying y minus x. So whatever's in y minus x, that would be 5 minus 47 would be negative 42, storing negative 42 in z. Now, the old contents of z are wiped out and replaced with the new contents. Each variable can only hold one value at any one time, and it's always the most recent value to be stored in the variable. So now, on line 33 here, the system out println will print y space minus space, whatever is in x, space equals space, and then the contents of z. So if I run this, right click and run. Oh, now another thing I did is I said in here, the Java console is down at the bottom of the window here. So in the graphics window, I just had a message that says look in the Java console for output. Okay, and down here after it says run single, notice that would be the output of the first system out println. Well, let me scroll here so you can see it. Okay, so system out println, what's the contents of x? 47, space plus space, and then what's the contents of y? 5, space plus space. Now what's the contents of z? 52. and then I set z equal to y minus x, and print y minus x equals z. Well, that's 5 minus 47 equals negative 42. Okay, so when you have a variable name that's not inside quotes, we replace that in the output with the contents of that variable. All right, so now what I did is I had lots of other examples here. So let me scroll down here and, okay, so let's take a look at what we have. So then z is 3 times y, print out 3 times y equals z. And now here's an illustration of integer division and the remainder, so the slash and the percent operator. Okay, remember that 47 divided by 5, you might think of it as 9 2/5, but with integer division we throw away any remainder, so it's just going to be 9. And then the remainder is going to be 2. Okay, then if I want to skip a blank line in my output, I can just system out println nothing. It prints nothing and moves to the beginning of the next line. So that would skip a line, basically. And then here is some examples from before the previous presentation. If I set d equal to 4.5, id to 47, and dd to 47.0, these are the problems that we had here. So d plus 2.2, 6.5 minus d minus 3, d times 2, id slash 5. Now notice that would be integer division, and then storing that integer in z. Actually, I think I'm going to get an error on that, but we'll see. And then this is going to store 9.4. Let's see if I get an error. I might have to remove that statement now that I think about it. Oh, no, it worked. Okay. All right, so now let's take a look at the output here. And let me, okay, so there's, I want all the output in the output window. You can change the size of the window by scrolling this little bar here. Okay, so let's do that. And then I can scroll up here. Okay, so the first two lines are the same, 52 and minus 42. 3 times 5 is 15. And then, okay, 47 slash 5 is 9. It throws away the remainder. And 47% 5 would be 47 divided by 5 is 9 with 2 left over, so it gives me the 2 left over. Then skip a blank line, so there's a blank line. And now d is 4.5. So 4.5 plus 2.2, 6.7. 6.5 minus 4.5 is 2, but it has to be represented as a double, so it's 2.0. 4.5 minus 3, it converts this to a double, and it gives me 1.5. 4.5 times 2 would be 9.0. And once again, integer 47 divided by 5 is 9, but 47.0 divided by 5.0 gives me the 9.4. Okay, so we can, if we want a division to have a fractional part to it, we need to make sure that we're using double precision data. And notice here, a double divided by an integer also gives me a double result. Okay. One other thing to mention here is, oh, I want to close these guys. Okay. In Java, you can have more than one operator in the same expression. So what if we wanted to try to say, I have 3 numbers and I want to calculate the average of the 3 numbers? Well, how would you do that? Well, just think about it from mathematics. You would add the numbers together and then divide by how many of them you have. So if I have 3 numbers, I'd add them all together and then divide by 3, and that should give me my average, right? So I have previously, oh no, I guess I have it in a separate file here. Okay, so I previously typed this out so I don't have to waste your time watching me type. Let me go in here and say, okay, I'm going to declare a double precision variable called average. And then let's say my numbers are 13, 15, and 17. Okay, so how would I get the average? Well, add them together, divide by 3, right? And then I'm going to system out println skips a blank line, and then this last line, the average of 13 comma, inside the quote you can have anything you want, and then outside the quotes, if I say plus average, it'll take whatever the value, the calculated value of average is, tack it on here after the space after the is. Okay. Now, do you think that was going to, does that make sense? It's not going to work, but I'm going to show you why in a minute. Okay, so let's see what happens. We run the program. I can move this down. and scroll. So the very last line here, the average of 13, 15, and 17, it says it's 33.666666, like 33 and 2/3. Well, if you think about it, that doesn't make sense, does it? Because the average of three numbers can't be bigger than the biggest one. It's got to be a number in between the two. Okay, so what's going on here? Well, what's going on is that when you have more than one operator in the same expression, they aren't always executed from left to right. Because think about algebra. There is what's called the precedence of operators, and some operators take precedence over others. In other words, they're evaluated in the expression before others, no matter whether they're located left or right in the expression. And so if you think about it, remember the acronym PEMDAS? Parentheses, exponentiation, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, right? So it turns out that what had happened here was, even though I wrote this as 13 plus 15 plus 17 divided by 3, division is a higher precedence operation than addition, and so it did the division first. So 17.0 divided by 3 is 5.666666, and then 13 plus 15 plus 5.6666 is the 33.666. So what we really meant to do was I wanted to add the three numbers together first, then divide the sum by 3. But if you write it this way with no parentheses, it's going to do this single division first. It's going to just do that division first and then plug in that value and add it to the other two. So if I want to force a lower precedence operation to happen before a higher precedence operation, the way you override that is to use parentheses, just like you would do in algebra. Okay, so now here, if I want the average of three numbers, I first want to add these three numbers together, then divide their sum by 3. And now if I make that change and run the program, you'll see that the average of 13, 15, and 17 is 15.0, which is what it really should be if you think about it, right? Okay, so there's lots more examples that you'll see in the book, and you'll get a chance to practice this in Lab 4.